Hey guys, welcome back to another NRL Fantasy Fanatics video. We're here with Dan once again from Footy Brains podcast. How are you, mate?
Yeah, pretty good. Will had another successful week of fantasy. Did okay. Didn't really move up. Didn't really move back. Just kind of middle of the pack. What about yourself?
Yeah, I got my third thousand in a row, fourth in the last 5 weeks. So, yeah, trending well, but still a lot to come. And this buy period is going to be quite interesting here.
Very. Yeah. There's not a lot of mids going around, especially if the players that are pending Origin selection. If the players that we think are going to get selected will get selected, there's going to be a very thin selection for round 12 in that mids position. So it'll be interesting when we touch on that.
Yeah, and I'm hearing that Kurt Mann is going to win a bench spot for Queensland. So, yeah, that's the only thing that I know about Origin so far. But three
Wow, that's
statistics has shit
yeah,
itself. So we'll be doing it this way for this video.
yeah, all
Wish us
good.
luck. So yeah, out of really the hooking position, there's not really many, maybe probably three or four that I'd look to buy. You got I have to go to him first because he's in my team. You got Aaron Clark there, who is one that I'd probably look to buy. Are you worried about him now though with Mitch Barnett, with not Mitch Barnett, with James Fisher Harris returning?
Yeah, it'll be an interesting dynamic to see what actually happens with Fisher Harris back in the team. If his start of the season stats are anything to go by, it'll diminish in terms of minutes a little bit. But if you've got Clark already, you're not going to be too worried, just considering he already has a lowish break even of 33. I don't think I'd be going out to buy Aaron Clark at this point, but I'm already an owner. I think I'm going to hold and see how he goes just through the first couple of buy rounds. Plus, Mitch Barnett might get selected for Origin as well. So there's also that benefit that he should pick up minutes in round 12 anyway, if Barnett's on the bench there. So for Clark, he's just going to be a hold if you have him. I don't think you're too worried at this point. If you're looking to buy a hooker, maybe you look at other options. I think just he's quite expensive now, and yeah, there is a bit of a minutes risk.
Yeah, I do think that he's probably won the big minute role. Like he's been so good for them over this
Yeah,
last
he has.
month or so that he's probably won it. But yeah, for me, I wouldn't be going out to buy him. But another hooker that I maybe might go out to buy if you don't already own him is Riley Smith. Played round 13 and has been killing it. Brandon Hand still like there's still no hooker on the bench. Do you think
Yeah.
that Riley is a very, very good buy this week?
Yeah, he's kind of framing himself as the 80-minute hooker at Para. Hands returned via the reserves, didn't get a spot in the 17. I think he was on the reserves again this week, but still unsure if he's even going to get a spot. Smith's been so good, making 50 plus tackles a game. Yes, he's been missing a few tackles, but I mean, if you're making 50 tackles and you have some, meters gained or some kick meters in there as well in terms of stats, I think you cheer. And Smith's still a pretty good option at his price currently. So yeah, don't hate the buy.
Yeah, and I do think that Smith, definitely can make some money there too. Does come with a little bit of risk, I say that.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. Do they play? No, they do. They do play around 12 and 13
yeah,
at
they
Para.
do.
Yeah.
If you're not buying Egan this week, do you have any interest in Wade Egan at all? 683K has gone down a little bit more in price from where it was. Personally, I think that you go Smith or a couple of the other hookers we're going to talk about over Egan personally.
Yeah, I honestly don't hate Egan. He's been showing that he's pretty consistent this season. So I don't hate him as an option, especially at under 700K. He's been scoring in the mid 50s. Every now and then he goes big. So I don't hate him as an option. He's just obviously more risky because normally he sits at around averages around the mid 40s. So this is kind of a different season for him. Plus, he also has the injury risk. Those concussions kind of come back to haunt him most seasons. So, yeah, I don't hate it, but like you said, Riley Smith at his price is a great option
Yeah, he is yet to
cash
get
wise.
a HIA there, which I would not bank on. Robson will play Origin. Watson's probably a sell, I would argue. Now, if him playing
Yep.
Origin, do you have any interest in Blake Brayley at all? He is a guy that always goes under the radar in my eyes. He always pumps out 50s as an average points and never really gets spoken about. And personally, for me, Blake is one that if I didn't already own Clark and Smith, I would be bringing him in for round 12. Where do you sit with Blake?
Yeah, I don't hate Blake Brayley is a bit of a pod option. He's not too bad of a scorer. He should, with the Sharks playing teams and Hines probably not getting selected for Origin, they'll be playing teams that are a bit understaffed in terms of the Roosters in round 12. They'll then play the Broncos as well post an Origin game. I personally think that he'll, play pretty well, and he normally gets his big scores off the back of attacking stats in and amongst the rocks. So yeah, I like Brayley as a bit of a pod option. It'd be interesting to see his stats outside of the Origin period compared to inside of the Origin period over the last couple of years, because I know that he's had some big scores in previous years. Obviously, doesn't average, in the 50s, 60s normally, but he's had some pretty big scores over the years. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see where those kind of came about and if they were during, rounds 13 through to 19 normally.
Yeah, I do think he is my pot of the round personally. I feel or close to because I feel his ceiling is so high, like he can get 70s to 80s, but his floor is really 45 to 50.
Yeah,
Like he's
yeah,
just such
exactly.
a yeah.
You can
Um,
always rely on him to get 40 odd tackles and about, 50 to 100 meters on the ground as well. He
yeah,
doesn't do anything kind of special in defense. It's more of his attacking ability that gets him, like you said, the big scores. Yeah.
there really is not many hookers you can really go off other than those four, I
Yeah.
would argue. Jazz Tavanga is owned by a couple of people, 7.4%. He's now moved back to hooker with Simpkin on the bench. Do you think this will be 25 minutes at hooker, then a couple at middle, 25 at hooker and nothing else? And where do you sit with Jazz as a hold, sell, buy?
Yeah, he's definitely a hold if you've already bought into him. You're probably going to be using him over around 12, 13. But I wouldn't be expecting you to hold him long term. Now that Gerbo's moved back to lock, he'll probably go play Origin. Then once he gets back into this team, he'll take that spot back, and Tavanga will move to that kind of hooker role. I don't know how far away Lockie Croker is. I think he's back in training. I don't know if he's coming back anytime soon, but eventually Tavanga is going to move back to the bench, I'd assume, and be that rotation forward.
Yeah, I
If
do
you've got
think
him,
he'll do you a job with that dual position, but
yeah,
not one to buy it with that dual position at all. Because when
yeah,
Croker's back, obviously he's going to go straight into the starting lineup and he'll lose minutes.
yeah, nothing long term with Jazzy.
Yeah,
He's just going to be the short term kind of plotter, make you a bit of cash now and then sell in the next couple of rounds.
yeah, and I don't think there's really many more hookies you can talk about there to finish off this hooking section. But when you go into the middle section here,
Well,
Terrell
actually,
Main,
just before you move on to mids,
yeah,
where do you sit with Brendan Smith?
oh, I won't be buying him.
Just wanted to
So,
get your temperature because it's an interesting one now that he's at the Bunnies, but Mamazolis is going to come back eventually, and yeah, who knows what's going to happen there.
you just say that Mamazoulis has won the spot with what he's done over the last month.
Yeah, you'd assume so.
Yeah.
Just
So,
curious.
out of Terrell May and Payne Haas, are you in the category you hold both, or are you selling one, hold one?
Nah, I'm holding both. They're going to both be guys that you want to get back in post Origin, and just the sheer amount of cash required to sell and then rebuy these two. It's going to really, like, they're obviously going to hurt your team locking up that cash over Origin, but it's going to hurt you more in trades trying to get them out and back in again. So I'm choosing to hold both of these guys.
Yeah, I do think that for me, I'll be holding both of them. And I think, yeah, you can play Aaron Clark in your middles too there for this Origin period. But yeah, just so much cash there.
Yeah.
Joe Tarpany, do you have him as the number one middle to buy for the Origin period? Been killing it this season and always kind of heats up a little bit around this Origin period. Averages 62, looks good and should gain some more minutes with Horsburgh not being injured but going to Origin.
Well, yeah, that's the big question mark, right? Is Horsburgh going to go to Origin, which we kind of predict he will. But Tarpany, I think either way, he's going to score quite well for the Raiders over this period. Like you said, historically, he does score well during this time, and they've got a really good buy schedule, the Raiders, this year. So, yeah, it's a bit steep. I wouldn't want to be paying 780 for Tarpany normally, but I feel like you've just got to bite the bullet and do it. Plus, I feel like a lot of coaches have made some significant cash over the last couple of weeks because there's been a ton of like really good cheapies that have come through, like Savala, like Egan. You could even chuck, Katonga or there's been so many Purdue, Toya. There's been a ton of cheapy options making cash. So yeah, most people will have the disposable income to bring in Tarpany. So yeah, get him in.
Yeah, the team values are so incredibly high this year, and I do
Yeah.
think Joe is one to go off. And another one who is in my team, Nafafu. I'm sorry, but let's talk about Nafafu while I'm on him. Where do you think he'll be in my middles most probably there? Where do you think he sits as definitely a hold? But would you be looking to buy him? Maybe could get increased minutes.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd go out and buy him at this point. I definitely think I'd be holding if I have him, but like White is at that kind of really difficult price where he's not really got much more money to make. Um, but he's kind of worth the trade because he's dual position. Yeah, it's a really hard one. I think I'd steer clear and look for going a gun rather
Yeah,
than playing around with these middle priced players at this point.
I do think there are better options than him at the same price, and a guy that I got as a better option than him for 4K, for 6K more is not playing this week, but Leo Thompson. Not very good minutes on the weekend with 40, but I think he has been killing it when he gets those big minutes there. And I think that he has a lot of value to make, and playing every single major bye week is incredible for Leo as one of the best mids to go over this bye period, I feel.
Yeah, I think it was just because he had that head knock, right?
Yeah,
That's why he didn't get many minutes last week. So obviously out with the concussion protocols this week. Yeah, don't hate it as an option around 600K. He's just got good buy coverage, probably the best thing about him. In terms of cash making, he might make a little bit. I don't think he's going to be a huge cash cow or anything, but yeah, he's kind of similar to White in that he'll do you a job, but I don't think he'll be anything kind of special
yeah,
during this period. You're just going to get a lot of games out of him. Like a lot of the Knights boys, you're just
yeah.
going to get a lot of games out of them.
And they both have such good buy.
Yeah,
So
buy coverage.
out of Yo and Couchman, where do you sit with those two? Personally, I think that both definitely. Personally, I think Yo's a sell just because round 11, 12 missing, and he isn't in the top 3 to 4 players in his position, I would argue. He has gone up and down, but where do you sit with Yo?
Yeah, these two, it really depends on your trade situation. Like if you've got 20 plus trades and your team's looking pretty good and you can afford to offload these guys and get them back post origin, sure, I don't mind selling them off. The problem is Couchman most likely comes back and gets his minutes back. Same with like Yo, obviously he's going to come back into the same role once he gets comes back from origin. And you just don't want to be consuming too many of your trades getting guns out and getting them back in. So I understand selling them if you have been pretty conservative with your trades and you've got plenty there. But if you're running with, 18, 17, 16 trades going into round 11, which is all we're at, we've still got another, 19 rounds to go, 18 rounds to go, or something like that.
Yeah, we do get those eight
Yeah.
trades too to keep in mind.
Yep, that is something to keep in mind, but you've still got to be
Yeah,
able to get through this origin period with some trades in hand before you get those 8 trades. So
yeah,
I'd be just questioning how many trades you want post origin and try to think about how many you're going to need to use for the next couple of buy rounds, and then make that the basis of if you sell Yo and Couchman over this period.
yeah. And I don't think really there's many middles you can kind of bring in this week that aren't top tier guns, but three that I think personally, I'd say I rank these three as, in my opinion, McInnes, AFB, King. I think King is, I'm a little bit off him just because of his minutes. I just don't think he has the minutes there, and he kind of needs the big minutes to score those massive points. I think AFB is the second best option because he is also not really getting the minutes, but can score so many tries and can have big games in there. And I think McInnes, for me, is the most consistent. And when he gets those big minutes, he scores well. And I think for the Sharks, he's going to be really important for them over this Origin period. Where do you rank those three middles as buys this week?
Yeah, I think I definitely put AFB as the second best buy after like Tarpany this week.
Yeah,
If you need a middle, because like most likely you lose Haas, you lose May and Yo, obviously. So Tarpany's your best one. AFB is probably your second best, and then I probably have it's a difficult one. I probably have McInnes and King around the same. King can show if he gets minutes that he can
yeah,
produce good scores, but I think McInnes has probably got he's more likely to be more consistent with the minutes and his scores. So I lean closer to McInnes there, even though I kind of don't like either McInnes or King as great buys. To be honest, they're similar to Naf White and Leo Thompson. You're just getting him in to do a job and then
yeah.
trading him out. So it's kind of just flipping trades.
And one player that I think could be quite an interesting option here is Keon Kalonga-Matangi. Moved to the prop rotation now. Isn't playing round 12, which is why I wouldn't buy him. But we know how he scores down the middle. He was an absolute stud last year at 13. Do you have any interest on Keon at all?
I mean, a little bit, yeah. If he can stay in that position longer term, yes. But it's still yet to be seen if that's going to be his position going forward. Like Wayne's going to keep changing the squad as he sees fit. So it's the same reason why I haven't jumped on you and Aitken yet, because I just don't know if he's going to stay on an edge or if he's going to get moved back to center. So there's cash to be made and there's points to be scored with Kolomatangi and Aitken, those kinds of players, even Campbell Graham if he can stay fit. But it's just if they stay in those positions and can stay fit.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of unknowns into a lot of these middles too. Like as you said, him not really playing big minutes or like getting moved back to the edge. He's not really a buy there.
Yeah, exactly. If he's back at lock, like that would have been the dream scenario, right? They don't bring
Yeah,
in Hubner this year. Kolomatangi starts at lock. He's a set and forget basically the whole season.
but yeah, not really anyone else down at this price range. I really look at bringing in just the one player that I would be interested in. Where is he? Must have missed him.
The only other one that I had on my list was Hamish Stewart.
Yeah, he's got a. It looks like he's won that locks role, and now if DeBellin moving to the prop spot, I think he should get 3 to 4 big minutes, big points, big minutes there for 3 to 4 weeks there. Do you think he's a tad overpriced now and doesn't play around 12 too to keep in mind?
Yeah, so that's the big thing that hurts him. He's got a break even of 9, so he's definitely going to make cash this week. Misses round 12, he'll play round
Yeah,
13. Then most likely Couchman's back in the picture somewhat, even if it's via the bench. But I think if he's plays well over the next couple of weeks and he can hold this lock spot, he has got plenty of cash to make still, Hamish Stewart. So I don't hate him as a buy, but it's still a risky buy at this point. But yeah, another good
yeah.
option.
I think it's a risky buy, and I have this guy almost as less of a risky buy. We've seen him cheaper price to Stewart, and he has gone a couple of big scores in a row now. No Leo Thompson this week, so I would say he's going to go for a big score. But do you think, again, they play 12, 15, and 18? I think like he could be a middle that is a cash cow. Well, like not a cash cow, but could make you money because we know what Jacob can do. But do you just think that Jacob is a little bit like he's a second fiddle middle at that team, like proper that team, which means he probably gets 45-ish minutes? Or do you see a big increase in his minutes in the next
Yeah,
coming weeks?
he probably sits around the 45 to 50
Yeah,
minutes normally. I think the last two games, 200 meters from him is probably unsustainable longer term. I don't think he's going to keep hitting 200 meters a game um, for the rest, well, even for the next month. But they do have quite a light roster, well, light draw coming up, and their roster is going to stay pretty consistent over this next period. So they've got Parramatta this week, then they've got the Panthers when they lose all their Origin players, and then they've got the Dragons after that. So, yeah, pretty good draw for the Knights, and I think Saifidi, you're not a bad shout there. Him and Leo Thompson should do pretty good through the middle. Saifidi, I'd prefer actually to Thompson just because he is cheaper. And if they get the same minutes, I think Saifidi's probably going to at least make you a bit of cash over this period, even if his scores aren't as high.
yeah, and I do think that he like they're not going to lose many middles though is the only problem with Saifidi. Like they're not going to lose many forwards at all.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so going into the second row position here, I think this is going to be a very tough spot to fill also in this buy period. I've personally got Dylan Lucas as a must-have for this buy period. Does play every single round. Is kind of a lock to put in your edge position there. Do you agree that Lucas is a must-have in your edge position?
Yeah, I don't even think you have to talk about him too much. I think Lucas is probably the best edge you can buy going into Origin. So yeah, if you don't have him yet, get him in this week.
Yeah, I think he is very much close to a must-have there. Not really much to talk about in this edge position. One guy that I think I want to talk about is Zach Hosking. Do you have him as a very good buy this week? A lot of people have been asking questions. Plays 12 and 15 here. We know what he can do when he plays big minutes on the second row. And Matty Nicholson is now gone for 12 weeks, is it? Yeah, 12 weeks.
Yeah, 12 week meant to be around 20, I think his return date or something like that. I saw NRL Physio put something up, but it's significant. Like he's broken his fibula, high syndesmosis injury. Yeah, Hosking is the single best buy this week, and if you don't get him this week after he scores a 50 or a 60, he's just going to be even more expensive next week. So yeah, I think Hosking and Tarpany are probably the two best buys for this round 12
And I think that's
game.
where the question goes. If you had to choose between Hosking or Tapani, who do you choose?
Oh, I'm choosing
Personally,
Hosking every day of
yeah,
the week.
I was saying Hosking cheaper price too.
Yeah, he's going to make so much cash. And we know what Hosking can do when he gets 80 minutes. And he's been playing some minutes through the middle over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah,
So there's every chance Ricky could maybe give him a bit of a swap between the edge and the middle. But even when he plays 80 on an edge, he still averages in the high 50s, low 60s. So
I'd argue the only red flag about Zach is the fact that he is a little bit injury prone. We've seen over the last
yeah,
couple of years.
of course, yeah, that's always been his Achilles heel. Mind the pun. But yeah, I still can't neglect the fact that he's 590k, and if he plays the next 2 to 3 rounds, could spike up, past 700k. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and at the start of the season, we brought him at pretty much the exact same price.
exactly. Yeah, and then he made a bunch of cash. We sold him for Nicholson. Nicholson's made a bunch of cash, and now we're selling back to Hosking now that he's lost a bit over the last since his return through the bench.
Yeah, and I do think he is one that I will be buying there. There's really not much in this edge position. Brinton Nickera, a little bit underpriced there. Do you think that he is one you could be looking to buy as a underpriced keeper for the round 12 buy?
Yeah, I don't hate Nickera. I've just got so many players through my edges that I don't really have space for Nickera at the moment, and he hasn't shown the same kind of scores that he's had in previous years. Even when you look at his first like 5 rounds, he had 5 tries in his first 5 rounds and still only averaged around the 50 mark, if not a little bit below 50. Which is honestly not what you want if you've got a player scoring a try a game. You want him to be closer to 60, if not higher, especially with some line breaks and some tackle busts. So Nico has probably been, a little bit below expected, but I think that's kind of come with the Sharks as well. They haven't been like the Sharks have been good, but they haven't been as good as their like team list on paper suggests. So Nico could be one that, has a huge breakout game and then, starts averaging back in the high 50s, 60s again, similar to Hudson Young right now. But I think at this point, he's not one that I'm going to buy into just yet until I see some form.
Yeah, I do agree there. And two more I've really argued to talk about. Dylan Egan here. Is he listed? I haven't checked. Is he listed to start this week or off the bench again?
He is listed to start this week, but he was
Yeah,
listed to start last
yeah,
week
last
and came
week.
via the bench. So
Do you think he has, I wouldn't say sell now, but doesn't play round 12. Do you think he's made his money and if he's off the bench, only going to play 50 minutes, is there an argument that you could sell Dylan Egan in the round 12 buy?
there's an argument, but I don't think it's one that should be
Yeah,
entertained at this point. He's still making plenty of cash. He's got a break even of 26 and even off the bench with 50 minutes. If you take away his try from last week
he still gets
and
a
even a
40.
tackle bust, he's still, in the
Yeah,
mid to high 40s. So, yeah, he's still chugging along, Dylan Egan, and I wouldn't be selling him just yet,
yeah,
even
I agree.
post
And
round
then
12. Yeah.
Isaiah Papali'i still had a much better game there. Liam Martin probably most likely to go to Origin. He looks like he has now maybe won that edge spot. Do you think he is an underpriced keeper that you can also bring in the edge for the round 12, for their round 12 buy, or they're playing round 12?
Yeah, this is the real interesting one, right?
Yeah,
So Papali'i, really like him at that price, playing on an edge. If he can hold the edge spot and they don't go back to rotating him through the forwards, I absolutely love him as a buy. And yes, they do play round 12. So he's going to be excellent value if he's listed on an edge, which he should be with Martin going to Origin. The problem is after that, when Liam Martin comes back in and they get the likes of, Scott Sorensen back and they maybe move Garner back to the bench and maybe change their centers around, although Garner's been looking pretty good as a center,
yeah.
surprisingly. He could always be displaced and move back into the forward rotation. There is value there. It's just going to be a huge risk. Like if you're like me and you're not in the top, couple thousand, it might be a warranted risk that you take with Papali'i over the Origin period. But then again, like the Panthers don't have great buys for Origin, right? They play around 12, but they miss 15 and 18, which are the next two major buy rounds. So
Yeah.
you're not really getting the value out of Papali'i there either. But I don't hate it if he holds the edge spot anyway.
I would say if you don't go Hosking this week, because I would say he goes up to about 610 odd K. I would, and Papali'i is listed to start. You go Papali'i next week because no one's going to buy him on his buy.
Yeah, he's a good one to keep an eye on for sure. Papali'i over the next definitely next week and the week after. Yeah.
Yeah, and let's talk about who to captain this week. And with Cleary gone, who I think is the obvious captain, do you think there's a chance you could take a pod captain, or is it one of the May and Haas that you go with?
I mean, you can go a pod captain, but I'm sticking true. I'm staying with May like I have been for the last month, even to my own detriment. But tell you what, Tarpany's been excellent over the last couple of weeks, and they're coming up against the Titans. Don't hate that as a bit of a pod captaincy option. Haas, he's always been chugging out pretty consistent scores, but this week against the Dragons as well is another good matchup where they're conceding a lot of meters through the middle. Don't hate that as probably not the pottest of captain options, but it's probably the safer of the two if you're considering Haas and May. I would probably stick with Haas at this point if
Yeah.
you're trying to decide. He's just the safer option. Yeah, I don't see many other pod options. Like normally we could go like a Ponga or a Tedesco or someone like that, but they've not been the most consistent players. Latrell maybe against the Tigers because they've just conceded 60 points. I don't hate
Yeah.
that as a shout, but not a lot of people own Latrell at this point.
This is where I want to put a lot of spice into this. And
Oh,
for
I
the
like
video, I
it.
didn't have the guts to put this on, but the guy that I'm looking at, the captain, he's been killing it for me recently. He's been so consistent. Like, if you go, oh, sign me out. That's not nice of it.
Yeah, Katoa, I actually really like this shout because I am so salty that I didn't pick him up. I had the opportunity to about 2 weeks ago and didn't pull the trigger, which really hurt.
And
Yeah,
yeah,
he's been huge.
he does so much in play kicking, and he does so much of the like directing of this team. Runs well, tackling well. For me, I don't know if I have the guts to do it, but if I was to do a pod captaincy this week, it'd be between him or a Zach Hosking against the Titans.
Yeah, Hosking's another really good shout. Actually, I might honestly look at that as an option considering where I'm ranked at the moment.
Yeah, and I feel the worst you're going to get with Hosking is 50 to 55.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's all you could really hope for in terms of actually, I've said that in previous years. You just want 50 plus from a captain, but scores nowadays, like 60s is becoming the new norm. And for captains, you really need 70 plus, which is what May, Haas, and
Yeah,
Cleary have kind of been producing over the last couple of weeks. So, I mean, you want kind of at least a 60 if you're
I
captaining
mean,
someone at this point.
Hosking has a historical average of 59 when playing over 60 minutes on second row.
Yeah, and I think if you change that to 70, it'll be
Yeah,
even higher. Yeah.
65-ish or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's get into this half position. So the first question is, I believe this guy's a no-brainer for a hold through the Origin period. Nathan Cleary, hold him 100%.
Uh, never say 100%, but yeah, I'd hold. Yeah, very strong
Yeah,
hold.
I agree there. And then so Jaden Campbell, would you be looking to buy him now? Kieran Foran back, which could be a little bit of a bad. We said he was not going to score as well. He scored a 63, but could be bad for his kicking meters there. Or do you think he's a proven gun and you have to buy him now?
Nah, Campbell, he's pretty much a proven gun in that half spot. I wouldn't buy him this round. Obviously, it's going to hurt his price a little bit if you don't buy him this round because he's just going to get more expensive. But I've got the round 12 buy.
Yeah,
I'd be looking to buy him round 13 at this point. So, but yeah,
yeah.
Campbell's another great buy.
Yeah, and then out of these four halves down here, out of Fogarty, Hines, Sharp, and Metcalf, who I would all say have been killing it, other than maybe Hines, he's probably been underperforming from where he should be. But I would say that out of these two, I'd only really be looking to buy two of them, which is Fogarty and Sharp. I'd say Sharp has the ability to go massive compared to the three of them, maybe Hines, and I'd say Fogarty's just so consistent. For me, I think Metcalf has been boosted by a lot of tries recently, and I don't think he can keep that up. And I think Hines just doesn't have enough attacking stats meters for me with those kick. Well, he has enough attacking stats, not enough base stats with those kick meters dropping. Do you tend to agree that the two you'd be looking to buy is Fogarty and Sharp?
Yeah, 100% Sharp definitely is the best buy out of those ones. Like I don't understand how he's just been so consistent in his scores, given kind of where his stats are. They're kind of all over the place, really. He gets some kick meters, gets some tackles, gets some line breaks. He's
Yeah,
just kind of just doing work on the field. So Sharp's been showing that he's probably the best out of those two. So I'd go Sharp over Fogarty, but then you're right. Like it's Sharp, then Fogarty, then probably I'd go Hines just as a safety option,
yeah,
and then Metcalf after that because, like you said, he's just been all over the tries recently, Metcalf. And if his first month is anything to go by, it's going to be a bit more inconsistent
yeah.
over the next few months.
And I think that Isaiah Katoa, would you still be looking to buy him? He is very expensive now, but I mean, he has been absolutely killing it of recent, just so much base stats, and I would argue he has to do more for the Dolphins when Hamaso leaves.
Yeah, I mean that's not a bad shout either. I think at 700k, I think that's a touch over 50 in terms of a base average for that
Yeah,
price. So Katoa has been showing that he's scoring above that. He's been scoring around the mid to high 50s as an average over the last couple of weeks. So I don't hate Katoa. His base is around, the high 40s, I think. And then anything he gets on top of that, because he gets plenty of try assists as well throughout the game. So yeah, I don't hate Katoa still as a buy. And he has, I think the major buy round he has is round 18. So the third major buy
Yeah,
round. So I think he's still a good buy, even at that price.
yeah, I do agree there. And then one that I think is very underpriced, pending Origin selection, if I would to buy him, is Mitch Moses. The Eels have looked a tad better with him. I think it takes a lot of guts to buy this guy, as I do think he's most likely to probably start at six. But do you think that Moses could be a very interesting pod buy if you have the guts to buy him?
Um, I'm going to say no, and only because he's losing his goal kicking. Like over the last couple of weeks, it's been Sean Russell doing the goal kicking, and the only reason he has one goal in his game where he returned is because Russell came off injured. I think he had not injured. I think he had a head knock, so he was off for HIA. And then when Lomax is back in this team as well, he'll take over the kicking. So he's third in the pecking order for goal kicking, which is pretty significant for a guy like Mitch Moses. Similar to the Hines situation, you lose those base stats and your average is just not going to be the same again. So I think Moses he'll be okay. Like at the price he is now, he's probably priced correctly, um, around the high 40 mark. So I don't think he's one that we can consider at this point, unfortunately.
Yeah, and yeah, as you said, the goal kicking has really affected him, and it's not like his team's on a cracking team either.
Yeah,
And
if
it's
they
been
were playing
massive.
like the Dogs, the Eels, I'd pick him up in a
Yeah,
heartbeat because I know there'd be plenty of attacking stats, but can't say that about my boys at the moment. So yeah, one to avoid.
and kind of out of the mid-range halves here, Cam Munster, I do you think he's a sell or a hold going into this Origin period? And can you give us your thoughts on Matt Burton and Jerome Hughes, both as buys in as cheaper probably keepers for the whole season?
Okay, Munster's definitely a hold for round 11, but I would probably sell him post that. So for the round 12 games, yeah, you're selling Munster onto someone that's playing. Um, who are the other two? Sorry, so Burton,
And Hughes and Burton as
Hughes and Burton. So Burton, I'm definitely keeping an eye on. He's one that will come back in and should pick up some stats. I'm not sure where he's going to filter in with Origin calculations, but I doubt he'll be there. Potentially an 18th man, but who knows really. Um, Burton, keep an eye on for sure when you're getting close to the back end of Origin because he's lost a lot of cash now. I think he's got a break even of 59 coming into this week, so one to watch. And Hughes, I'm not really sold on at all at the moment, just because if you look at his last game, he had just ridiculous stats, had a try and a bunch of line breaks and try assists. So not one that I'm considering currently because he hasn't really outperformed like he should, like last year. But one that I will keep an eye on as well while Munster's out with Origin.
yeah, and I do think that I think you give him maybe one more week, and if he can put up a good score, you say, oh, he's back, and they could be missing Grant, Pappenhausen, and Munster there, which means that he would pretty much have to do everything for this team. That is, and I do think Burden Dogs are playing well. I do think he'll be in or around the Origin setup, but I don't know if he really plays.
Yeah, he might be around, but yeah, if he's 18th man, then he'll still miss the game, unfortunately, the buy round. So, but yeah, like you said, if he's not playing and he's just around the camper, he should be fine still. But yeah, Hughes is an interesting one because yes, he would normally score quite well when all the major players are out, but the I think the Storm have the buy in round 12 and 15. So the two first major buy rounds for Origin. So he's not really going to score any better because the Storm players will probably come back for the round after anyway. So you're probably waiting till the back end of Origin or the game 3 anyway.
Yeah, I do tend to agree there. And well, do you think Savala is still a buy in the halves if you don't already own him, which everyone should?
Oh, you definitely should own him by now. What's Walker's return date? 14,
I think it's
15?
14 or 15.
Yeah, so
Probably too late now.
yeah, you're getting pretty close. What are their buys? 14, I think, is their next buy.
Yeah, so you have 3 rounds out of him.
I mean, I don't hate that. 3 rounds is enough to get some price rises. Is it enough? Negative break even of 15. Yeah, I mean, I'd probably still jump on him if you haven't already. You could still make 100K off him over the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, I do agree there. And then in the centre position, I really think there's only three, four, five centres you can go with. And Farnworth, I think he's one of the top centres. Do you have much interest in Farnworth at all as the best centre in this Dubai?
Yeah, I mean, love Herbie. He's been surprisingly the best center performer over the last couple of years. Problem is his price, right? 750K is very steep for a center, especially when a lot of us have other centers like Dill Lucas's, like Rob Toyer's, like Katonga. Yeah, there's lots of centers going around, and it's just a luxury to get Herbie in. I'd love it if you can get him in somehow. I love it, but there's other players that I'd prefer over him that just have better value, like your Hoskins at this point. And you can supplement that center position with some other cheap guys that you still have in your team.
Yeah, and I do think he should score quite well there, and he will do
Yep.
quite a job there. And then I think, do you think Jackson Purdue takes a hit being at 5'8" there, and if so, do you think he's a hold?
I think he's a hold for now. I actually don't know what's going to happen with him as a half. It'll be interesting to see how his scores change. Hopefully, it means he gets more tackles and a bit more base, but I don't know if that's going to limit his attacking potential as well. So, yeah, this is going to be an interesting one just to watch. To be honest, so I've got no expectations about his move to the halves, and we'll just see what happens. But you're holding him for sure before you've got to find out, right? You can't sell him now. What if he skyrockets over the next week or two?
Yeah, I do think you're definitely holding him there.
Yeah,
That is 100% for sure there, at least for this week.
at least for one
Because
week. Yeah,
yeah, because they have the buy in round 12 anyway.
yeah,
Um, who else is centers? Katoga and Karaz. Karaz obviously doesn't make if he does not make Origin, he's obviously a stellar buy. I would still be buying him. And Katoga, I think he's a hold. They play round 12. He has been good and has a low break even now. Do you agree
yeah,
that he's a hold?
yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, not much really to say there, is there?
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be sticking around for the time being. It's obvious that Riles likes him in that back row spot and playing 80. Looks pretty good, even though we lost against the Finns. But yeah, I think you're holding on to him and just hoping you make as much cash as you can.
Yeah, that's where I think is that's where I think you got to go with him if you own him.
Yeah.
Ruben Garrick is up and down, isn't he? It's what he's always been like. Do you think Garrick is a hold, or would you be looking to move him on to one of these other centers?
Nah, Garrick's still a hold. I'm looking to buy him next week, actually. I'm just hoping that he doesn't put up a good performance this week against the Cowboys because he's got a break even of 62 and he drops a bit of cash for next week for me. But if you've got him, you're holding him just because of his, buy coverage. And if you don't have him, I'd be giving him a good close look over the next couple of weeks, next week, before round 12. And if you can bring him in, I'd bring him in.
Yeah, and he does that dual position too, which he
Yeah.
does goal kicking also. Like I think he's got so many positives not to be able to bring him in.
Yeah.
Tamale, getting a lot of questions about him as a sell. I personally think against the Gold Coast Titans, he is definitely a hold. He does play round 13 too, round 12 too. So yeah, do you agree that Tamale is one you should be holding tight?
Yeah, he's a hold. He just came off playing the Dogs. I mean, you can't have you can't have too many high expectations that he's going to keep scoring 50s every week when you're playing the team that's leading the comp and has a great defensive record. So yeah, Tamale's a hold. And like you said, Titans should have a field day hopefully.
Yeah, and they just put 32 on them and a half too.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
I mean, you can't have Crichton running at you one-handed every week. So yeah,
yeah,
hopefully it's a bit different this week for him.
and I don't really think there's many more centers to really look at.
Yeah, no, I mean, Nwanga Tawase is probably the other one that I think people probably have, and sorry about my dog there, is probably holding over the next couple of weeks and hoping you get some good scores out of him.
Yeah, I do think that he will. And do you want to talk us through this 100 that we score after you probably said he is one that you could move on from Pappenhausen?
Mate, if Pappenhausen scores 4 tries and has 10 conversions every week that I say he's going to do bad, I'd be picking him up in a heartbeat. But that's not going to happen every week. And I think because of that performance, he's probably going to be playing Origin or be in the team at least, if not 18th man. So, yeah, Pappy's still one that you're holding, but you're also a bit cautious of now because he's going to make a bit of cash over the next couple of weeks. So you could be one that you sell high and move on to another, gun winger fullback or a gun mid as well.
Yeah, like you give him this week, and if he goes again, gets up to that like 700k, you could be selling him a max with that break, slow break even there.
Yeah, exactly. Like I stand by what I said. To be honest, last week,
Yeah,
he's not going to get those attacking stats every week. He's not going to put 60 on a team every week. Um, I'd still move him on when he's at his highest. Yeah, which could be around 700k. Because
yeah,
you'd much rather prefer getting a guy in at 700k, like a mid, like, going up to, well, what have you got there? Lucas, even at 700k. Even if you can use his cash to go up to a Jaden Campbell, you'd much prefer that base to risking Pappenhausen week in, week out.
yeah. And I don't think you really can risk Pappenhausen with that base that he has there week in and week out,
Yeah.
especially if you're going to be a top team. That is,
Yeah, exactly. Like he scored 52 points in tries and goals alone. Like that's insane. You can't do that every
no,
week.
that won't happen every week. And
Yeah.
many other wing fullbacks to go. I think we've already spoken about Sharp, Campbell, and Carraz as their dual position. They're all very strong buys there. Tedesco most likely play Origin, I would say. Would you agree
Yeah,
that? Yeah,
he's probably playing Origin. I would say he's the front runner currently. But yeah, you never know. We'll know on Sunday night, Monday morning what the team turns out to be. Could be Pappenhausen even if he has another stellar game like last week. But that'll be very interesting to see because if Teddy doesn't get picked, he then becomes a pretty good option because of the Roosters buys. Like he will play every major buy round basically if he doesn't get selected, or if
yeah,
he
and
doesn't is considered for selection in the following origins as well.
yeah, and I think he's a close to a must-have if you don't get selected with that incredible buy schedule. And we all know what Tedesco knew. Like he hasn't slowed down at all, has he?
Yeah, exactly. He's
Yeah.
great.
And Latrell, I don't think I'd be buying him now. Had a big game, but I think he's pretty much solidified in Origin, isn't he?
Pretty much. He'll be playing center for sure.
Yeah,
I can't tell you how infuriating it was to see him score that try at the
I know.
end against the Broncos because that was an easy, 12 points that he picked up when he could have
Yeah,
only had maybe a 60 or a 70. And it's just frustrating for fantasy purposes. Obviously, you love to see it for the game, but for fantasy purposes, it really
yeah.
hurts because now he's just not going to come down in price anymore.
I'm just wondering, have you seen what I've done with that change since this video started into my
Uh,
team?
no, what did you do? Did you make
Oh,
another trade while,
nah,
while we've been talking?
I put the C on Zach Hosking.
Oh, I like that, mate. If he comes off, if he gets a 70, you'd be absolutely cheering.
Oh,
I might do it myself, to be
it takes
honest. It's
one try and he's done. He's gonna get an 80.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad shout against the Titans. They leak a lot of points. They look better with Campbell in the team, but I just don't think that it's going to be something that's sustainable for them. Like consistency over this season for the Titans is not going to be there, unfortunately. They're going to be up and down, I think. So yeah, love
Yeah,
Hosking as a captain.
I do agree there. And Greg Marzou, he's a clear sell, isn't he, with that injury?
Yeah,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Do you have any interest in their winger that's coming in for him, or are you on the same trend with me that the Knights are playing too bad and no one's really as good a winger as Greg Marzou that is coming in for Greg Marzou?
Yeah, Fletcher Hunt, I
Yeah,
think his
something
name
like that.
is.
F Hunt, I think. Yeah,
Yeah. I to be honest, I know nothing about him, but I
either.
assume he's going to be a 230k player because he's not in the game. He hasn't played a game of NRL before. I don't hate it as a cash out option just because the Knights at least play over these
Yeah,
buy rounds, but it's probably one you want to see first. I wouldn't go out and buy him straight away.
yeah. And I think this year, like we have so many players that are around at least 500k that you can probably hold them and do cash outs later on and just bank so much cash. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So then, where do you sit with Drinkwater? He's probably wouldn't be buying him this week, considering they got around 12 buy. But after that, he's definitely a very strong option to buy, isn't he?
Yeah, one to keep an eye on. Had a played well, I thought, against the Panthers, but didn't fantasy wise just didn't kind of translate. So one that I will be keeping an eye on for round 13 and after because I think that's their last buy, right? They missed the first major buy round and then they play the rest of the games through Origin.
Yeah, I do think that they're both. I do think that you'd be looking to buy him around
Yeah,
13 because that's
I think
all
so.
they got there. And
Yeah.
then Ponga and Iongi. Personally, I think Iongi is a hold. He's played round 13 and has been playing better since Moses comes back. But where do you sit with Ponga? Most likely in Origin. At 514k, it is very, very cheap for Kalen Ponga. Where do you sit? He had that one good game that we thought he was back and went back to a 22.
Oh, I bought him last week, just eyeing off this Titans game as like his kind of redemption arc and getting ready for Origin because he's obviously going to get selected with Walsh out. But he he was honestly terrible. Like that Knights team against the Cowboys against the Titans, they were just shocking. The only
Other
good
than
player that
Lucas.
was putting in anything was like Sharp and Lucas. Like it
Yeah,
did feel like they were just so flat. The Knights. Honestly, if I think they had any other options, they probably wouldn't select Ponga going into this first Origin game because he has not been good enough to be selected for Origin by his standards, and I'm sure he would admit that himself. Um, yeah, I think I bought into him. I think I'd hold him if I have him at this
yeah.
point, but I probably wouldn't be buying him
I
at the moment.
I don't know if Slater has the guts to do this, but I reckon it could be an interesting option to go Munster at fullback and then Dearden at six, Daly at seven, because I think Dearden's been incredible this year.
Yeah, I honestly don't hate that as a bit of a
Yeah,
change up, to be honest, because yeah, I think I saw that somewhere actually. I don't know where I saw that. It was somewhere on maybe Insta or maybe on
yeah.
some other podcast talking about it. But yeah, I don't hate that as an option. I just don't think Munster's got the pace at fullback to, to be breaking the line and, taking players on all that often. That's the only issue.
I think the one thing I can say is being a Queensland supporter, I think it's going to be a long Origin series.
Game one might be a bit rough, but you'll get Walsh back for game two and
Yeah,
see how you go from there.
but if Walsh does come back for game two, that makes Ponga hold. Like having a player of Ponga around 15 and 18 for your team is very handy.
Yeah, I think they have the buy around 18, don't
Yeah.
they?
Oh
But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah they do.
even for game two,
Yeah,
like you'd still happily put him in your team for that
yeah,
that week. Well, I don't know about happily, but you'd put him in your team if you
yeah.
have him.
And yeah. So Turbo Tom, 24, disgusting. When does he become a buy and does he play Origin?
I don't think he gets selected for Origin unless he comes out and has an absolute screamer this week of a game. He looked very sluggish on the weekend, still kind of hampered a bit by that knee. So I am eyeing him off as a bit of a buy, like a sub 500k turbo. I think you buy him if you can fit him in your team. So I don't think he gets selected for Origin and could become a buy for round 12 and 13.
Well,
I
I
mean,
think
we'll
it's
know exactly what to do with him by Monday, really. If he doesn't get selected, I think you buy Turbo for round 12, 13.
it could be an interesting option to go one shit at the same price to another shit with Ponga down to Turbo.
Ponga down to Turbo. Yeah, it's an interesting trade.
Yeah, but I think it's wasting a trade there, and
Yeah.
I don't really think there's many more in the wing fullbacks to talk about. Do you agree?
Uh, yeah, no, I think that pretty much covers all the options.
Yeah, that was quite in depth, and yeah, thanks for joining us, Dan. Do you have any last option or any last comments?
No, just good luck for round 11. Get ready for the first major buy round, and yeah, good
And
luck
if
with your
Zach
teams.
Hoskin comes off and I don't captain him, you'll be hearing all about it.
Yeah, can't wait till next week.
Yeah. Cheers, guys. See you in the next one.